Before we begin, if you're enjoying these law enforcement stories from across America, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps us continue sharing these accounts. And I'm curious, where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments. Now, let's get into tonight's story. My name is James Caldwell, but my close friends call me Jim. I have served as sheriff of Braxton County, West Virginia, for over 8 years, and before that, I served as deputy sheriff for 16 years. I know every valley, every back road, and every family in the county. At least I thought I did until that incident happened. After what happened in October 1995, everything I thought I knew about Sutton Lake changed. When you build something new on top of something old, you see what it is that should never be touched. This story starts with a phone call, but to understand it, you need to understand a few things about me. First, I'm 42 years old, a widower for the past 6 years. My wife Catherine died of cancer in 1989, just 2 months after we buried our son, Michael. He was 9 years old when he drowned in Sutton Lake during a family picnic. Turned my back for 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. By the time I realized he wasn't on the shore anymore, it was too late. I pulled his body out of that water myself. That's something you never forget. The weight of your own child, lifeless and cold, your hands shaking so badly you can barely hold on, the way the water runs out of their mouth, the way their eyes won't close no matter how many times you try. After that, I threw myself into work. What else could I do? The house was too quiet without Michael's laughter, without Catherine's voice. Being sheriff gave me purpose, gave me a reason to get up every morning, protecting other people's children, other people's families. Maybe if I did that, it would somehow make up for the one I couldn't save. It was a Thursday night, October 19th, 1995. I was alone in the station, finishing up paperwork around 7:30. My deputy, Frank Morrison, had gone home an hour earlier. His wife was pregnant with their first child, and I told him to spend more time with her while he could before everything changed. The phone rang, not the regular line, the 911 line. I picked it up, expecting the usual, domestic disturbance, maybe car accident on Route 19, nothing unusual. Instead, I heard screaming. A woman's voice, high-pitched and terrified, barely coherent. I could hear wind in the background, or maybe water. The line was full of static, like she was calling from somewhere far away, somewhere the signal barely reached. "Please, please, someone help. They're taking the children. They're taking them into the water. Oh God, they're walking into the water and I can't stop them. Please, someone." The line went dead. I immediately tried to trace the call, but the system showed nothing. No number, no location, just a blank screen. Like the call had never happened. But I'd heard it. Heard the terror in that woman's voice. Heard something else, too, underneath her screaming. Children's voices, singing. High and sweet and completely out of place, I grabbed my keys and radio, calling Frank as I headed for my patrol car. "Frank, I need you back at the station. Got a possible emergency. Children in danger near water location unknown." "Copy that, Sheriff. On my way. Any details?" "Not yet. Just get here." But I had an idea where to start looking. Sutton Lake. It's the biggest body of water in Braxton County, created back in 1961 when they built the Sutton Dam. Before that, it was just the Elk River running through several small communities. The dam flooded all of it. Houses, churches, farms, even a few graveyards. The Army Corps of Engineers said they relocated everything important, but the old-timers knew better. There were things down there that never got moved. Things that should have stayed buried. Michael had drowned in Sutton Lake. Maybe that's why my gut told me to head there first. I drove out Route 4, taking the winding road that follows the shoreline. Sutton Lake is strange at night. The water's so dark it looks black, and the mountains rise up on all sides, blocking out most of the sky. There are dozens of little coves and inlets, places where old roads used to run before the water came. Most people avoid the lake after dark, not because of any particular danger, but because it feels wrong somehow, like the water remembers what it drowned. I'd driven about 10 miles, checking each pull-off and boat launch, when I saw the light. It was faint, coming from up a gravel road that I didn't recognize. I'd driven this route 1,000 times and I'd never seen that road before. But there it was, overgrown and barely visible, but definitely a road. And at the end of it, maybe a quarter-mile up, I could see a warm yellow glowhouse lights. I turned onto the gravel road, my tires crunching on stones. The vegetation grew thick on both sides, branches scraping against my patrol car. This road hadn't been maintained in decades, maybe longer. The house came into view as I rounded the final curve, and I felt something cold settle into my stomach. It was a white farmhouse, 2 stories, with a wraparound porch and a pitched roof, the kind of house people built in the 1950s or 60s. It looked well-maintained, freshly painted, with lights glowing in every window. A tire swing hung from an old oak tree in the front yard. Children's bicycles leaned against the porch steps. But something was wrong. The house sat maybe 50 yards from the lake shore, close enough that high water would flood the basement, and houses didn't exist this close to Sutton Lake. The Corps had made sure of that when they built the dam. Everything within 100 yards of the future water line had been demolished. This house shouldn't exist. I parked my patrol car and grabbed my flashlight, though I didn't need it with all those lights blazing. I approached slowly, hand resting on my service weapon, every instinct telling me something was very wrong here. The porch steps creaked under my weight. Old wood, but solid. I could hear sounds from inside, a radio playing music. Big band music, the kind my grandfather used to listen to, and something else. Children laughing. I knocked on the door. "Sheriff's Department, is anyone home?" The laughter stopped immediately. The radio cut off mid-song. The sudden silence was worse than any noise. I knocked again, louder. "This is Sheriff Caldwell. I received a 911 call about children in danger. I need to speak with whoever's in charge here." Nothing. Just silence, and those warm lights glowing through curtained windows. I tried the doorknob. Unlocked. The door swung open with a long, drawn-out creak. "Sheriff's Department," I called out again, stepping inside. "I'm coming in." The interior of the house hit me like a physical blow. It was perfect, immaculate, and completely frozen in time. The living room had furniture from the early 1960s, a console television with rabbit ear antennas, a rotary phone on a side table, magazines on the coffee table, Life and Saturday Evening Post, dated 1962. A calendar on the wall showed October 1962, 33 years ago. But everything looked new. No dust, no decay, no signs of abandonment. The carpet had fresh vacuum tracks. I could smell something cooking in the Kit Brown pot roast, maybe. And underneath it all, something else. Something like lake water and wet stone. "Hello?" I called out, moving deeper into the house. "This is the sheriff. I'm here to help." I checked the Kit Brown first. A pot was on the stove, still warm but not hot, containing what looked like stew. A loaf of bread sat on the counter, half sliced. 7 plates were set at the dining room table, with 7 glasses of milk, full and cold. 7 places, for 7 children. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I moved through the first floor, checking each room. Everything was pristine, perfectly preserved, completely wrong. A den with children's toys scattered on the floor. board games in mid-play, a puzzle half completed on a card table. The stairs to the second floor were carpeted in a pattern I recognized from my childhood. My grandmother had carpet like this. I climbed slowly, my flashlight beam cutting through shadows that seemed thicker than they should be. 4 bedrooms upstairs. The master bedroom looked untouched, the bed made with military precision. 2 smaller bedrooms, obviously for boys based on the decor. 1 larger bedroom with bunk beds and pink curtains. And in each room, in each bed, a child. 7 children total. 4 boys, 3 girls, ages ranging from what looked like 4 years old to maybe 12. They were lying in their beds, tucked in carefully, hands folded on their chests. Their eyes were closed. They weren't moving, weren't breathing. They were dead, had been dead for a very long time, but they looked perfect. No decay, no decomposition, no signs of death except for the absolute stillness and the cold that radiated from their skin. They looked like children who'd just fallen asleep and never woken up. I backed out of the bedroom, my radio suddenly feeling very heavy in my hand. I should call this in. Should get Frank out here, get a medical examiner, get someone to tell me what the hell I was looking at. But something stopped me. Some instinct, some feeling that if I left this house now, I'd never find it again. That gravel road would disappear, and this house and these children would go back to wherever they'd been hiding for the past 33 years. I went back downstairs into the living room, trying to piece together what I was seeing. 7 children, perfectly preserved, in a house that shouldn't exist, by a lake that had drowned the land where this house stood. That's when I noticed the photographs on the mantel above the fireplace. Family photos, black and white and faded color. A mother and father with 7 children, ranging in age from infant to preteen. The photos showed them at different stages. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, summer picnics by a river that I recognized as the Elk River, before it became Sutton Lake. The most recent photo showed the whole family. The 7 children were the same ones I'd found upstairs. Same faces, same ages. The mother was a thin woman with dark hair and tired eyes. The father was a big man, wearing overalls, probably a farmer or coal miner. Written on the back of the photo in faded ink, Thompson family, October 1962. October 1962, 33 years ago. Right around the time Sutton Lake was being filled, when the dam was first closed and the water started rising, drowning everything in its path. I pulled out my notebook and wrote down the name. Thompson family. 7 children. I'd research them when I got back to the station, find out what happened to them, but I had a horrible feeling I already knew. I was about to leave, about to head back to my car and call for backup, when I heard it. A clock chiming slow, deep, resonant. 8 chimes. 8 o'clock. And then, from upstairs, I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. Children's laughter. I ran for the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. The hallway upstairs was dark now, though I could have sworn I'd left lights on. I could hear movement from the bedrooms. Footsteps. Small feet on old wooden floors. I reached the first bedroom, the one with the bunk beds. The beds were empty. All 3 girls were gone. I checked the next room. Empty. The boys were gone too. I heard them downstairs now, talking, laughing. The sounds of children doing normal children things. I went back down, my hand on my weapon but not drawing it. What was I going to do? Shoot dead children who'd somehow started moving? They were in the dining room. All 7 of them sitting at the table with those 7 plates of food. They were eating, talking to each other, acting completely normal, like they hadn't just been corpses in their beds 2 minutes ago. The oldest one, a girl of maybe 12 with dark hair and pigtails, looked up at me. Her eyes were clear and bright and completely alive. "Hello," she said politely. "Are you here for dinner? Mama always makes extra. I stood there, unable to speak, unable to process what I was seeing. A younger boy, maybe 6, looked at me curiously. "You're wearing a policeman costume. Is it Halloween already?" I'm Sheriff Caldwell," I managed to say. "I'm here to help you." "Help us with what?" the oldest girl asked, tilting her head. "We don't need help. We're having dinner. Mama will be back soon. She went to get Daddy from work." "What's your name?" I asked her. "Scarlett Thompson. This is my house. Well, my parents' house. I'm the oldest, so I'm in charge when they're gone." She gestured to the others. "That's Matthew, Luke, Mary, Joseph, Grace, and the baby is Timothy, but we call him Timmy." Biblical names, all 7 of them. A deeply religious family, probably Scarlet, I said carefully, trying to keep my voice calm. "What year is it?" She looked at me like I was stupid. 1962. Why? What month? October 19th, 1962. My birthday's next week. I'll be 13. She smiled, proud. Mama's making a cake. October 19th, today. But 33 years ago. "Scarlett, I need you to tell me something. Do you remember anything unusual happening? Anything about water, or the dam, or—" "The dam!" The little boy, Joseph, interrupted excitedly. "We went to see the dam yesterday. It's so big. Daddy says they're going to fill it up soon, and we'll have a big lake right outside our house." No, they didn't understand. "Scarlett," I said, crouching down to her level, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. That dam, the one they're filling the water, is going to come all the way up to your house, maybe over it. Your family needs to evacuate. Do you understand?" She shook her head. "That's silly. The government men came and measured. They said the water would stop way down the hill. We're safe up here. Daddy made sure." But they weren't safe. The water had come higher than expected, higher than the Corps of Engineers had calculated. I'd seen the reports, the lawsuits from families whose homes had been flooded when they were promised they'd be safe. The Thompson farm had been one of those homes. Before I could respond, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A woman's voice calling from outside, distant, distorted, full of terror. Children, get out of the house. The water's coming. The dam broke. Get out now." The same voice from the 911 call. All 7 children stopped eating and looked toward this window. Their expressions changed from cheerful to confused to frightened. "That's Mama," Scarlett said, standing up. "Something's wrong." They all got up from the table and walked toward the front door, moving in perfect synchronization like a dance they'd rehearsed 1,000 times. "Wait," I said, moving to block them. "Don't go outside." But they walked right past me, through me almost, like I wasn't even there. They filed out onto the porch, and I followed them. Outside, the night had changed. The air was different, heavier, filled with the smell of rain and churned earth. I could hear water rushing, a sound like distant thunder but constant, growing louder. The children stood on the porch, looking out toward the lake. But it wasn't the lake I'd seen when I arrived. The water was higher, rougher, moving wrong, and in the distance I could see lights. House lights, dozens of them. The community that used to exist here before the flood. "Mama," Scarlett called out. "Where are you?" That voice answered, closer now. Run to high ground. The dam gave way. The water's coming." And I could see it now, a wall of water, dark and massive, rolling down the valley toward us. The emergency spillway had failed, or been opened, or something. The water was coming faster than anyone had expected, higher than anyone had calculated. This wasn't now. This was then. October 19th, 1962. The night the water rose and drowned this place. The children started walking toward the water. "No!" I grabbed for them, but my hands passed through Scarlett's shoulder like she was made of smoke. "Stop! Don't go toward the water!" But they kept walking, all 7 of them, down the porch steps, across the yard, toward the lake shore, toward the rushing wall of water that was seconds away from hitting. I ran after them, trying to grab them, trying to stop them, but I couldn't touch them. They were ghosts, or memories, or something else, replaying the last moments of their lives. The water hit. It was cold and dark and moving with impossible force. It swept over the children like they were made of paper, and I saw them tumble and disappear into the churning blackness. I tried to follow, tried to save them, but the water was gone as suddenly as it had appeared. I was standing on the shore of Sutton Lake, the calm, dark water lapping gently at the rocks. The house was behind me, lights still burning cheerfully in every window. The children were gone. I stood there, breathing hard, trying to understand what I'd just witnessed. A replay of that night. The night the Thompson children died. The night the water rose and took them. But if they died in 1962, why were they in that house? Why did they wake up at 8 p.m. and act like nothing had happened? I looked at my watch. 8:47 p.m. I needed to call this in, needed to get help, needed to figure out what the hell was happening in this house. But as I walked back toward my patrol car, I realized I couldn't leave. Not yet. Not without understanding. Because something was very wrong here. Those children had drowned 33 years ago, but they'd been eating dinner 20 minutes ago. They'd talked to me. They'd walked into the water and disappeared. And somewhere, a woman's voice had been screaming on a 911 line that shouldn't have been able to reach across time. I got in my car and radioed Frank. "Frank, I need you to run a name for me. Thompson family, Braxton County, circa 1962. See what you can find about them." "Copy that, Sheriff. You find the source of that 911 call?" "Maybe. I'm at a house on the north shore of Sutton Lake. Old gravel road off Route 4, about 10 miles east of the marina." There was a pause. "Sheriff, there's no road there." "I know that stretch. It's all water and rocks." "I'm looking at the road right now, Frank." Another pause. Longer. "I'll send a unit out to meet you. Don't go into any structures alone." "Too late for that," I muttered, but I acknowledged the order. I sat in my car, staring at that house. The lights were still on. I could see movement through the windows. The children back inside, back at the dinner table. Like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just drowned right in front of me. My radio crackled. Frank's voice uncertain. "Sheriff, I found something. Thompson family, 7 children, died October 19th, 1962. Drowned when the emergency spillway opened without warning during a storm. Bodies were never recovered, presumed swept down into the deep part of the lake. Never recovered," I repeated. "That's right. Family filed complaints with the Corps of Engineers, said they'd been promised their property was above the flood line. Investigation found that the calculations had been wrong. Several families lost homes and property. But the Thompson family lost everything, including 7 children. 7 children who'd just eaten dinner and walked into the water and vanished. Frank, I need you to find out if there were any other incidents on this property. Anything unusual. People seeing things, hearing things, anything." "Will do, Sheriff. Are you okay? You sound strange." Was I okay? I'd just watched 7 dead children eat dinner and drown in a flood that had happened before I was born. Was I okay? "I'm fine. Just get me that information." I looked back at the house. The children were in the living room now, playing a board game on the floor. Scarlett was dealing cards. The younger ones were laughing, like it was a normal evening in a normal house in a normal world. But it wasn't normal. None of this was normal. And I had a horrible feeling that 8 o'clock was just the beginning, that whatever had happened to these children on October 19th, 1962, was still happening. Every night. A loop they couldn't escape. I checked my watch again. 9:15 p.m. I didn't know how long the cycle lasted, didn't know when they would walk into the water again, drowning over and over in an endless replay of their last night. But I was going to find out, because maybe, just maybe, there was a way to stop it, a way to give these children peace, or maybe there wasn't. Maybe they were trapped here forever, reliving their deaths every single night, and there was nothing I or anyone else could do about it. I grabbed my flashlight and headed back toward the house those children had looked at me, had talked to me, which meant they weren't just memories or ghosts. They were something else, something aware, something that might understand if I could just figure out how to communicate. I was a sheriff. I'd spent my entire adult life protecting people, and even if these children were already dead, even if they'd been dead for 33 years, I was going to find a way to protect them. Or die trying. I walked back up those porch steps, back into that house frozen in 1962, back into the mystery of the Thompson children and Sutton Lake and whatever dark thing had been keeping them trapped here for over 3 decades. The children looked up as I entered. Scarlett smiled. "You came back," she said. "Do you want to play Parcheesi?" I looked at her face, so young and innocent, and completely unaware that she was dead. "Sure," I said, "I'll play," because I had until midnight, maybe later, to figure this out, to understand what was keeping them here. And something told me the answer was in the water, in Sutton Lake, in the dark depths where their bodies had never been found. Something was down there. Something that had been disturbed when they built the dam. Something that fed on tragedy and loss and the unfinished business of the dead. And it wasn't done with the Thompson children yet. I sat down on the floor with 7 dead children and played Parcheesi, watching the clock tick toward whatever came next, and wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life by coming into this house. I played board games with dead children for 2 hours. Parcheesi first, then Monopoly, then a game of Old Maid with the youngest ones. They laughed and argued over rules and acted exactly like normal kids on a normal evening in a normal house. Except nothing about this was normal, and the wrongness of it pressed on me with every passing minute. Around 10:30 p.m., I excused myself and went outside to check in with Frank. My deputy had arrived 15 minutes earlier, parked his patrol car next to mine at the end of that impossible gravel road. "Sheriff," he said as I approached, his face pale in the moonlight, "I don't understand. This road, this house, they shouldn't be here. I've driven Route 4 100 times and there's never been a turnoff at this location." "I know. And the house, I ran the property records. This area was cleared in 1961, before the dam was finished. There's no structure registered here, hasn't been for 34 years. "I know." Frank looked past me at the brightly lit house. "But I can see it, it's right there, and I can hear them, children playing." 7 children, I said. The Thompson family. They drowned the night the water rose in 1962. But they don't know they're dead, Frank. They think it's still October 19th, 1962. They're waiting for their parents to come home. Frank was quiet for a long moment. "What are we dealing with here, Jim?" "I don't know. But I think we need to understand what happened that night. The real story, not just what's in the official reports." Frank pulled out a folder he'd brought from the station. I found more than the official reports. I found witness statements, complaints filed with the Corps of Engineers, even some newspaper clippings from the Braxton Democrat. He handed me the folder, and I opened it under the light of my flashlight. The first document was a photocopy of a newspaper article from October 21st, 1962. 7 children missing, presumed drowned in dam emergency. Tragedy struck Braxton County this weekend when the emergency spillway at the new Sutton Dam was opened without warning during a severe thunderstorm. The unexpected release of water flooded several properties that had been assured by Corps of Engineer surveyors that they were above the projected flood line. Most devastating was the loss of the Thompson family children. Robert and Margaret Thompson had gone to Braxton Town for supplies when the flood hit, leaving their 7 children at home under the supervision of their eldest daughter, Scarlett, age 12. When the parents returned, the farmhouse was underwater and all 7 children were missing. Bodies have not been recovered. Search efforts continue, but officials say the force of the water likely swept the children into the deepest part of the new lake. The Thompson family has refused to leave the area, insisting they will not abandon their children. I felt a chill run through me. The parents had survived. They'd been in town when it happened. They'd left their children alone, and when they came back, all 7 were gone. The next document was a statement from Margaret Thompson, dated November 3rd, 1962. I heard them. I heard my children calling for me from the water. The rescue workers said it was grief playing tricks on my mind, but I know my children's voices. They were calling for me to come get them. They said they were cold. They said they were scared. They said they were waiting. I went to the water's edge every night for a week, calling back to them, but they stopped answering. The sheriff said I was disturbing the peace and threatened to have me committed. My husband, Robert, made me stop going to the water, but I still hear them late at night, singing the songs I taught them, coming from across the water. Another document, dated April 1963, was a property abandonment notice Robert and Margaret Thompson had left Braxton County. No forwarding address. The farmhouse, now partially underwater during high lake levels, had been condemned and was supposed to be demolished. But it was never demolished, because I was looking at it right now, perfectly intact, perfectly preserved, like the last 33 years had never happened. The final document in the folder was a photocopy of a handwritten letter, addressed to the Braxton County Sheriff's Department, dated October 19th, 1967, exactly 5 years after the drowning. My name is Margaret Thompson. I am writing this from my new home in Ohio, where my husband and I have tried to rebuild our lives, but I cannot escape what happened in Braxton County. Every year on October 19th, I hear my children. No matter where I am, no matter how far I've moved, at 8 p.m. I hear them wake up and call for me. I hear them playing. I hear them eating dinner. I hear them asking when Daddy and I are coming home. And at 11:47 p.m., I hear them scream. I hear the water take them every year. For 5 years now, always the same. Always at the same times. Always ending with those screams. I am writing to ask if anyone else has heard them. If anyone near the lake has reported voices, because I need to know if my children are still there, or if I am simply going mad with grief. Please, if you know anything, please write to me. There was no record of a response. The letter had been filed away and forgotten. Frank and I stood in silence, reading by flashlight, the sound of children's laughter drifting from the house. She heard them, I said finally. Even from Ohio, she heard them wake up every October 19th at 8 p.m. And at 11:47 p.m. something happens, Frank added, something bad. I looked at my watch. 10:47 p.m. 1 hour until whatever Margaret Thompson had heard her children scream about. I'm going back in, I said. I need to be there when it happens. Maybe I can stop it. Jim, you can't stop something that happened 33 years ago. Maybe not. But those kids talked to me. They saw me. which means I'm not just watching a recording of the past. I'm interacting with something that's still here, still aware. And if they're aware, maybe they can be saved. Frank looked at me with concern. Jim, I know you're thinking about Michael, but these aren't your son. You can't save them. I have to try. I walked back toward the house, Frank following reluctantly. As we approached the porch, I heard Scarlett's voice calling out, "Mr. Sheriff, are you leaving? We are going to play charades." I stopped at the bottom of the steps. Scarlett was standing on the porch, backlit by the warm glow from inside. She looked so alive, so normal. It was easy to forget she was dead. "Scarlett, I need to ask you some questions. Important questions. Can you answer them truthfully?" She nodded seriously. "Mama says to always tell the truth." "Do you remember what happened after dinner? After you finished eating?" Her expression faltered. "After dinner, we went outside to see the lake. It was so big and pretty in the moonlight." "And then what?" "And then," she frowned, concentrating. "And then Mama called us. She said to come back inside, but we couldn't. We were—" Her face went pale. "We were in the water. How did we get in the water?" "Scarlett, do you remember drowning?" She stared at me, her eyes filling with tears. No, we didn't drown. We're fine. We're right here. We're waiting for Mama and Daddy to come home." But even as she said it, I could see the realization starting to dawn in her eyes, the understanding that something was wrong, that time didn't make sense, that the water had taken them and they had never come back. "Scarlett, what year is it?" It's 1962, October 19th. "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow is October 20th. "And after that?" She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. I don't remember tomorrow, just today. Just October 19th. Why can't I remember tomorrow?" From inside the house, I heard the younger children calling for her. "Scarlett, come play with us. Mr. Sheriff, you too." Scarlett looked back at them, then at me. "Something's wrong, isn't it? This isn't right." "I'm going to help you," I told her. "But I need you to trust me. In 1 hour, something is going to happen. You and your siblings are going to feel compelled to walk toward the water. I need you to fight that feeling. I need you to stay in the house. Can you do that?" She nodded slowly, though I could see fear in her eyes. "I'll try." I followed her back inside, Frank staying on the porch. The other children were in the living room, and they immediately recruited us for charades. The younger ones acted out animals and objects while we tried to guess. It was surreal, playing with children who didn't understand they were trapped in a loop, reliving the same night over and over for 33 years. At 11:30 p.m., I noticed the children starting to act strangely. They became quieter, more subdued. The youngest ones looked toward the windows, toward the lake, like they heard something calling to them. "Scarlett," I said quietly, "do you feel it?" She nodded, her face pale. "Something's calling us. It wants us to come to the water. Don't listen to it, stay here." But I could see it was a struggle. All 7 children were fighting against an invisible pull, something deep and primal that was drawing them toward the lake. At 11:45 p.m., little Timmy, the youngest at 4 years old, walked toward the front door. His eyes were glazed, unfocused, and he moved with jerky, puppet-like motions. "Timmy! No!" Scarlett grabbed him, but he was stronger than he should be, pulling away from her with inhuman force. The other children started walking toward the door too. One by one, they stood up from where they'd been sitting and moved toward the exit like sleepwalkers. Like something was controlling them. I positioned myself in front of the door, arms spread. "Stop, you don't want to go out there." But they walked right through me, just like before. My physical presence meant nothing to them. I was solid to them when we were playing games, when we were interacting normally. But now, when it mattered, I was a ghost in their world. They filed out onto the porch and down the steps, moving in perfect synchronization. Frank tried to stop them too, but his hands passed through their bodies like they were made of smoke. "No, no, no," I heard myself saying, following them desperately. "Scarlet, fight it. Remember what I said." Scarlet was at the back of the group, tears streaming down her face. She was fighting harder than the others, each step a visible struggle. I can't stop. It's so strong. It wants us. It's been waiting for us." The children walked across the yard, past the tire swing, past the bicycles, toward the dark water of Sutton Lake. The moon was high and bright, reflecting off the surface like a mirror. And standing at the water's edge, I saw something. A figure, tall and thin and wrong, made of shadow and lake water and something older than anything that should exist in this world. It had no face, but I could feel it watching, waiting, hungry. The children walked into the water one by one. The cold lake swallowed them ankle-deep, knee-deep, waist-deep. They kept walking, kept moving toward the deep center where the old river channel ran. "Stop them!" Frank shouted, splashing into the water after them. But he couldn't touch them, couldn't slow them down. They walked past him like he wasn't there. Scarlet was the last to enter the water. She looked back at me one final time, and I saw complete awareness in her eyes. She knew she was dead. She knew this had already happened. She knew she was trapped in an endless loop, drowning over and over, night after night. "Help us," she whispered. "Please. Make it stop." Then she walked forward, and the water closed over her head. I waded in after them, diving under, trying to grab them, trying to pull them back. But there was nothing. They were gone, vanished into the dark water, like they'd never been there at all. I surfaced, gasping, treading water in the freezing lake. Frank was beside me, equally devastated. "They're gone," he said, just like that. Gone. We swam back to shore and stood there, dripping and shivering, staring at the house. The lights were still on, and through the windows I could see movement. The children were back inside, sitting at the dinner table, eating, laughing, playing, like the last 3.5 hours had never happened, like drowning in the lake was just a brief interruption in their evening. The cycle had reset. Frank and I walked back to the house, our clothes leaving wet footprints on the porch. We went inside. The children looked up at us with cheerful, innocent expressions. "Hello," Scarlet said brightly. "Are you here for dinner? Mom always makes extra." She didn't remember. None of them did. The cycle had reset completely, erasing their memories of everything that had just happened. I looked at the clock on the wall. 8 p.m. We'd somehow jumped back 4 hours. Back to the beginning of the cycle. Back to when the children first woke up. Frank grabbed my arm. "Jim, we need to leave. Now. This isn't natural. This isn't something we can fix." But I couldn't leave, because I'd seen the look in Scarlet's eyes right before she walked into the water. She'd been aware. For just a moment, she'd understood, which meant there was hope. Which meant maybe, just maybe, there was a way to break the cycle. "Frank, I need you to go back to the station. Research everything you can find about Sutton Lake. Not just the dam construction, but before that, what was here before the water came? Were there any stories, any legends, anything unusual? Jim, please, I'm staying here. I need to understand what's keeping them trapped, and I have 4 hours until it happens again." Frank looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I was. But I'd already watched those children drown once. I wasn't going to watch it happen again without at least trying to understand why. Frank left reluctantly, and I sat down with the Thompson children for dinner again. Same pot roast, same bread, same 7 glasses of milk. "What's your name, mister?" little Joseph asked me. "Jim Caldwell. I'm the sheriff." "Are you going to arrest someone?" Mary asked, eyes wide. "Maybe, if I can figure out who needs arresting." We ate in silence for a while. The food was real, or felt real anyway. Tasted like pot roast my grandmother used to make. I wondered idly if I was eating food from 1962, if somehow this house was reaching across time to maintain this perfect recreation of that last night. After dinner, I helped Scarlett clear the table. As we stood at the sink, I asked her quietly, "Do you ever feel like this night repeats? Like you've lived it before?" She paused, her hands in the soapy water. "Sometimes I have dreams. The same dream, over and over. I'm in the water, and I can't breathe, and I'm calling for Mama, but she can't hear me, and then I wake up, and it's dinner time again." "How many times have you had that dream?" "I don't know. Lots? Maybe every night?" She looked at me with confused, frightened eyes. "Why can't I remember any other day, just this one?" "Because you're trapped, Scarlett. Something is keeping you and your siblings here, making you relive this night over and over. Why would something do that? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." At 9 p.m., my radio crackled. Frank's voice excited. "Jim, I found something. There's an old story from before the dam, from before white settlers even came to this area. The Shawnee who lived here had a legend about the Elk River. They said there was something in the water. A spirit or a demon, they weren't clear. It fed on drowning victims, on the last breath of people who died in the water. They called it the Drowned Mother, and they made offerings to appease it." Offerings? Sacrifices. The story says that if someone drowned in the river, they had to perform a ritual to release the victim's spirit. Otherwise, the drowned mother would keep them, use them, feed on their life force. Jim, when they built the dam, when they flooded all those communities, dozens of people died. Construction accidents, people who didn't evacuate in time, people like the Thompson children, all those drowning victims, and no one performed the rituals. No one released them. I looked at the children playing in the living room. "So this thing, this drowned mother, it's been feeding on them for 33 years, keeping them in a loop so it can feed on their fear and confusion over and over." "That's what the legends suggest. Jim, there's more. The ritual to release them requires someone to take their place, a willing sacrifice. Someone who chooses to stay in the water so the trapped spirits can go free." A chill ran through me. Someone like a parent, like Margaret Thompson, who heard her children calling from the water. Or someone like you, who already lost a child to this lake. I looked down at my hands, seeing them shake slightly. Michael, my son, drowned in this same lake 3 years ago. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe this thing, this drowned mother, had been collecting victims for decades, building its power. Feeding. And now it had shown me these children, knowing I couldn't turn away. Knowing I'd try to save them. Knowing it could offer me the same deal it had probably offered Margaret Thompson. Trade yourself for them. "Jim, don't even think about it," Frank said, reading my silence correctly. "You can't sacrifice yourself for children who've been dead for 33 years. But as I watched Scarlett help her younger siblings with a puzzle, as I saw their innocent faces and heard their laughter, I knew I was already thinking about it. Because maybe that's what the drowned mother wanted. Maybe that's why it had called me here tonight. Not to save the children, but to collect one more victim. One more source of fear and grief to feed on. Or maybe, just maybe, I could actually break the cycle. Release these children and destroy whatever dark thing had been keeping them trapped. I looked at the clock. 10:15 p.m. Less than 90 minutes until they would walk into the water again. 90 minutes to figure out how to save them or let them go. And something told me that tonight, for the first time in 33 years, there would be a different ending to this story. Because this time, they weren't alone. This time, someone was here who understood loss, who knew the weight of a child's death, who might be willing to pay the price for their freedom. This time, I was here. And I was starting to understand that I hadn't found this house by accident. The drowned mother had called me here, had shown me these children, had given me the knowledge of how to free them. Now, all I had to do was decide if I was willing to take their place in the dark water of Sutton Lake forever. Frank came back at 10:45 p.m. with more information, and none of it made me feel better about what I was facing. "I found the original Shawnee legend," he said, spreading photocopied pages on the dining room table while the children played in the next room. It's from a collection of oral histories recorded in the 1890s by a folklorist from the university. The drowned mother isn't just a spirit, it's older than that. Pre-human, maybe. The Shawnee believed it was the river itself, given consciousness and hunger. How do you kill something like that? You don't. According to the legend, it can't be killed. It's part of the water, part of the land. When they built the dam, they didn't destroy it. They just gave it a bigger territory, a deeper hunting ground. I looked at the pages he'd brought. One of them included a crude drawing of the drowned mother. It showed a figure made of water and drowning victims, reaching up from the river bottom with hands that were made of corpses. The legend says it collects the last breath of drowning victims. Frank continued. That final moment when someone goes under and breathes in water instead of air, that's what it feeds on, the terror, the struggle, the desperate attempt to live. And if the proper death rites aren't performed, it keeps the victim's spirit trapped, replaying that drowning moment over and over so it can feed continuously. 33 years, I said. These children have drowned every night for 33 years. Over 12,000 times. Can you imagine dying that many times and never being allowed to rest? I couldn't. The horror of it was beyond comprehension. The ritual to release them, I said. Tell me exactly what it requires. Frank hesitated. Jim, I know what you're thinking. Just tell me. He pulled out another page. A willing sacrifice. Someone who chooses to take the place of the trapped spirits. They have to enter the water at the moment of drowning. At the exact time the original victims died, they have to speak the names of those being freed and offer themselves in exchange. And then, he trailed off. And then what? And then they have to breathe in the water. They have to drown, willingly and consciously. So the drowned mother accepts the trade. The room felt very cold suddenly. Is there any other way? Any way to release them without a sacrifice? Frank shook his head. According to the legend, the drowned mother always collects what it's owed. The only question is whether it gets to keep its current victims or you give it new ones. From the living room, I heard Scarlett's voice. "Mr. Sheriff, are you okay? You look sad." I went to the doorway. All 7 children were looking at me with concerned faces. They could sense something was wrong. Even if they didn't understand what "I'm fine," I lied. Just thinking. "About what?" little Timmy asked. "About dying," I thought. "About drowning. About trading my life for yours. About how to help you," I said instead. Scarlett stood up and walked over to me. She was a tall girl for 12, almost as tall as I was when I was that age. She had her mother's dark hair and what I imagined was her father's steady gaze. "You know something," she said quietly. Something you're not telling us. I knelt down to her level. Scarlett, I need to ask you something important. If you could leave this place, if you could stop living the same night over and over, would you want to? She looked confused. What do you mean, same night over and over? You've been reliving October 19th, 1962 for 33 years. Every night you wake up, have dinner, play games, and then something makes you walk into the water, and then you wake up again and do it all over. You're trapped here, Scarlett. You and your brothers and sisters. Her eyes filled with tears. That's not true. That's impossible. How could... But even as she protested, I could see the realization dawning. The memories of all those repeated nights, all those drownings, surfacing from wherever the drowned mother had buried them. Oh, God, she whispered. I remember all of it, every single time. We drown every night, and I can't stop it, and I can't save them, and... She started hyperventilating, panic overtaking her. I grabbed her shoulders. Scarlett, listen to me. I can stop it. I can free you, all of you. How? I didn't answer, couldn't answer, because the truth would terrify her even more. The clock on the wall showed 11:15 p.m. 32 minutes until they would start walking towards the water. 32 minutes until I had to make a choice. Frank pulled me aside. Jim, you can't do this. You can't trade yourself for them. Why not? They're children. They've suffered for 33 years. They deserve peace. And what about the people you protect? What about this county? What about the people who depend on you? You'll be fine without me. That's not the point. Jim, I know you're thinking about Michael. I know you blame yourself for his death, but sacrificing yourself won't bring him back. It won't ease that guilt. This isn't about Michael, isn't it? You lost your son to this lake. Now you're being offered a chance to save 7 other children from the same fate, but the cost is your life. That's not justice, Jim. That's not even redemption. It's just suicide with extra steps. I turned to face him. What would you do if it was your child trapped here, drowning every night for 30 years? If someone offered you a way to free them, would you take it? Frank was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I do. I'd take it in a heartbeat. I looked at Scarlett, who was now comforting her younger siblings. They were all starting to remember now, all crying and holding each other as the memories of thousands of drownings flooded back. The horror on their faces was unbearable. At 11:30 p.m., I made my decision. I walked out onto the porch, down to the lakeshore. The water was calm and dark. Reflecting the moon like black glass, I could feel something watching me from the depths, something ancient and hungry. I know you can hear me, I said to the water. I know what you are, the drowned mother, the spirit of the river, the thing that feeds on drowning victims. The water rippled, though there was no wind. I'm offering you a trade. Take me instead of them. 7 children for 1 man. I'll drown willingly, consciously. I'll give you what you want, but you have to let them go. You have to release their spirits and let them rest. The water rippled again, and I heard something. Not words exactly, but a feeling, a communication that bypassed language entirely. It was interested. The drowned mother was always interested in willing victims. They tasted better than the unwilling ones, lasted longer. But there was a condition. It wanted to make sure I understood what I was agreeing to. The water before me began to change, showing me images like a dark mirror. I saw myself drowning, over and over, just like the Thompson children. I saw years passing, decades, centuries. I saw the lake drying up eventually, thousands of years in the future, and me still trapped, still drowning in memory, unable to escape even when the water was gone. Forever? That was what I was agreeing to, not death, but eternal drowning, eternal suffering. The drowned mother didn't just want my life. It wanted my eternity. I stood there, staring at the water, understanding for the first time the full weight of what I was considering Scarlett and her siblings had endured this for 33 years. Was I strong enough to endure it forever? Behind me, I heard Scarlett's voice, "Mr. Sheriff, what are you doing?" I turned. All 7 children were standing on the shore, watching me. They'd followed me out of the house. "Going for a swim," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "You're going to trade yourself for us," Scarlett said. It wasn't a question. Somehow, she knew, "You're going to drown so we don't have to." "Scarlett, don't do it." She walked closer. "We're already dead. We died 33 years ago. You're still alive. You still have time left. Don't waste it on us. You've suffered enough. And you think suffering in our place will make it better? It won't. It'll just be you drowning instead of us. The thing in the water, it doesn't care. It just wants to feed." She was 12 years old and dead for 33 years, but in that moment, she sounded wiser than anyone I'd ever met. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Just leave you here? Let you keep drowning every night?" "I don't know, but I know this isn't the answer." She looked at her siblings, then back at me. Maybe there isn't an answer. Maybe some things can't be fixed. The clock in the house chimed. 11:45 p.m. 2 minutes until the pull would start, 2 minutes until they'd begin walking toward the water. And then I saw him, standing at the far end of the shore, barely visible in the moonlight, a boy, maybe 9 years old, with dark hair and my wife's eyes. Michael, my son, my dead son. He was standing at the water's edge, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not afraid, not sad, just waiting. "Do you see him?" I whispered. Scarlett followed my gaze. "The boy?" "Yes. He's been there the whole time I thought he was with you." "That's my son. He drowned here 3 years ago." Understanding crossed her face. "The thing in the water, it has him too." I started walking toward Michael, my heart pounding. He remained still, watching me approach. As I got closer, I could see details. The swim trunks he'd been wearing that day, the way his hair stuck up in the back like it always did, the small scar on his knee from when he fell off his bike. Michael," I said, my voice breaking. "Michael, it's Dad." He didn't respond, just kept staring at me with those eyes that were Catherine's eyes, the eyes I'd loved and lost. "I'm so sorry," I continued. "I turned my back for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. I should have been watching you. I should have saved you." Michael's mouth opened, and I heard his voice for the first time in 3 years. "You can save me now." "How?" "The same way you can save them." He gestured toward the Thompson children. "Trade yourself. Take our places. Free us. Michael, don't you want to save me, Dad? Don't you want to make it right?" Something was wrong. The way he was talking, the words he was using, Michael had never called me Dad like that. He'd always called me Daddy, in that high, sweet voice that I missed more than anything. This wasn't Michael. This was the drowned mother, wearing his face, using my grief against me. "You're not my son," I said. The thing that looked like Michael smiled. "I'm what's left of him. I'm the memory of his last breath, his last thought, his last moment of terror. I'm real enough. Get away from me. You can't save them, Sheriff, not the Thompson children, not your son. You can only trade yourself for them. And when you do, I'll have you instead. One man for 8 children, I think that's a fair trade. Nothing about this is fair. The Michael thing laughed. Life isn't fair. Death isn't fair. And what comes after is least fair of all. It turned and walked into the water, disappearing beneath the surface. I stood there, shaking, my hands clenched into fists. The drowned mother had just shown me its hand. It wanted me, had wanted me since Michael died, had been waiting for the right bait to lure me in. The Thompson children were just that bait. Frank appeared at my shoulder. That thing isn't going to let you save them without taking you in return. That's the only trade it understands. Then what do? You leave. You walk away. You accept that some things can't be fixed. But I couldn't. Because at 11:47 p.m., the Thompson children began their walk to the water. Their eyes glazed over, their movements became mechanical, and they filed past me toward the lake. Scarlett was crying, fighting against the compulsion, but unable to stop. "Help us," she whispered as she passed. "Please." I watched them wade into the dark water, one by one, until it closed over their heads. And this time, I followed them in, not to trade myself. Not yet. But to understand. To see what happened under the water, where their bodies vanished to each night. I took a deep breath and dove under the surface. The water was impossibly cold and impossibly dark. My flashlight barely penetrated a few feet. I kicked deeper, following the direction the children had walked, expecting to find the lake bottom, but there was no bottom. I kept swimming down, my lungs starting to burn, and the darkness just continued. The pressure should have been crushing me, but it wasn't. The water should have been freezing me, but I could still move. This wasn't Sutton Lake anymore. This was somewhere else. The space between the realm where the drowned mother kept its victims. And then I saw them, dozens of them, hundreds, bodies suspended in the darkness, neither floating nor sinking, men, women, children. Some in clothes from the 1960s, some from earlier. Construction workers who'd died building the dam. Residents who hadn't evacuated in time. Children, like the Thompsons who'd been caught in the sudden flood. All of them trapped. All of them drowning. Over and over and over. I saw the Thompson children among them, their faces twisted in silent screams, bubbles rising from their mouths as they breathed in water that would never fill their lungs, never grant them the mercy of death. And I saw Michael, my son, suspended in the darkness, his arms outstretched toward me. His mouth was open in a scream I couldn't hear. I swam toward him, my lungs screaming for air, knowing I only had seconds before I'd have to surface or drown for real. I reached him, touched his face. He felt real, solid, present. His eyes opened. "Dad," he said, his voice somehow carrying through the water, "you came for me." "I'm here, son, I'm here. Are you going to save me?" "I'm going to try." "Then take my place. It's the only way. That's what she wants. That's what she's always wanted." "Who?" "The drowned mother. She's been waiting for you since the day I died. She knew you'd come eventually. Knew you'd try to save someone. Knew she could use your guilt against you. I can't just let you stay here. Can't let any of them stay here. Then drown with us." My vision was starting to blur. I was out of time. I had to surface or I'd become one of them. I let go of Michael and kicked upward, my lungs burning, my vision going dark. I broke the surface gasping, barely making it to shore before collapsing. Frank hauled me onto the sand. "What the hell were you thinking?" I had to see, had to understand what I was dealing with. I coughed up lake water. "There are hundreds of them down there. Everyone who's drowned in this lake for the past 34 years. All trapped. All feeding the drowned mother." then you can't save them. Not without an army. Not without... He stopped. Without what? The Shawnee ritual. It releases trapped spirits. But Jim, it requires the ritual to be performed by someone with authority over the land, someone the water recognizes as having power here. I'm the sheriff. Does that count? I don't know, maybe. But there's something else. The ritual has to be performed at the source, not here, at the dam, at the point where the water was first held back, where the river was first transformed into the lake. I looked at my watch. Midnight. The cycle had reset. Inside the house, lights were back on. The Thompson children would be having dinner again, forgetting everything that had just happened. How long do we have until the next cycle? 4 hours. Until 8 p.m. tomorrow, or tonight, or however time works for them. Then we have 4 hours to get to Sutton Dam, figure out this ritual and perform it before they drown again. Jim, even if we do this right, even if we release all those spirits, something has to anchor the water. Something has to hold back the drowned mother. The ritual requires a sacrifice. Then I'll be the sacrifice. There has to be another way. Find it in the next 4 hours, or I'm walking into that dam at 8 p.m. and I'm not coming back. Frank stared at me, recognizing the determination in my voice. He'd seen it before in other situations, other crises. When I made up my mind, nothing could change it. All right, he said finally. Let's go save some children. We drove through the night toward Sutton Dam, racing against a clock that didn't follow normal time, trying to stop something that had been feeding for 34 years, and I knew, deep in my bones, that one way or another, this ended tonight. Either the drowned mother would let its victims go, or it would have one more permanent addition to its collection, me. Sutton Dam loomed against the pre-dawn sky like a concrete wall between worlds. 300 feet high, 700 feet long, holding back millions of gallons of water and something far older than the lake itself. Frank and I arrived at 4 a.m., driving past the locked gates and barriers that were supposed to keep people out after dark. We parked at the base of the dam and stood looking up at the massive structure, feeling its weight, its presence. The ritual has to be performed at the spillway, Frank said, consulting the pages he'd brought. Where the water flows through, that's the threshold point, the place where the river becomes the lake. We climbed the access stairs, our footsteps echoing off concrete. At the top, we found the spillway, a series of massive gates that controlled water flow. Only one was partially open, releasing a steady stream of water into the river below. Frank pulled out a piece of paper covered in phonetically spelled Shawnee words. I got this from a professor at the university. He translated it from those old oral histories, but Jim, he said, this is dangerous, calling on the drowned mother directly, asking it to release its victims. It's like walking into a lion's den and asking it to give up its food. I'm not asking, I'm demanding, and I'm offering payment. Your life. If that's what it takes. The sky was beginning to lighten in the east. We had maybe 2 hours before the sun came up fully, before the Thompson children would wake again in that impossible house, eat dinner again, play games again, drown again. Unless I stopped it. Frank began to read the ritual words, his pronunciation halting but clear. The language was ancient, guttural, full of sounds that seemed to resonate with the water flowing through the spillway. As he spoke, the water began to change. The steady flow became turbulent, churning. I could see shapes in it, faces forming and dissolving in the foam. The hundreds of victims trapped below the surface, responding to the ritual. Drawn by the possibility of release, Frank's voice grew stronger as he continued, reading the words that commanded the drowned mother to hear us, to acknowledge us, to consider our offer. The water began to rise, flowing backward against gravity, climbing up the spillway toward us. It formed a column, a shape, a figure. The drowned mother. It was made of water and darkness and the memories of drowning victims. I could see faces in its substance, hands reaching out from within its form. It had no true shape, just a constantly shifting mass that hurt to look at directly. It spoke, not with words, but with feelings, impressions, raw emotion translated directly into our minds. You summon me. You call me forth from the deep. What do you want, little sheriff? I want you to release your victims, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. All of them. The Thompson children, the construction workers, everyone you've trapped over the years. Let them go. Let them rest. Why would I do that? They are mine. I claimed them fairly. The water took them, and I kept them. That is the natural order. There's nothing natural about trapping spirits in an eternal loop of drowning. You're not a natural force. You're a parasite, a predator. The water churned more violently, the drowned mother's anger manifesting as waves that crashed against the spillway. I am the river. I am the lake. I am every drop of water that has ever taken a life. I am ancient beyond your comprehension. And you dare to call me a parasite? I dare to call you what you are, and I'm offering you a trade. Me for them. One life willingly given, consciously drowned, in exchange for every spirit you hold. You think one life equals hundreds? You think your suffering can feed me as much as theirs? No. But I'm offering you something they can't give you. Choice. They were all taken by accident. By circumstance, I'm choosing to drown. That has to be worth more. The drowned mother was silent for a long moment, the water figure shifting and churning as it considered, it is worth more. A willing sacrifice, a conscious death, yes, that would sustain me for many years. But why should I trade? I already have many victims. Why should I give them up to gain just one more? Because if you don't, I'll find a way to drain this lake. I'll blow up this dam. I'll do whatever it takes to expose you, to destroy your hunting ground. The drowned mother laughed, a sound like water rushing over rocks. You can't destroy me. I am the water itself. Drain the lake, and I will simply wait for the next rain, the next flood. I am patient. I am eternal. Maybe, but you'll lose your victims. When the lake drains, their bodies will be found. Proper death rites will be performed. They'll be released from your hold. You'll have nothing, except you. If you truly want to save them, Sheriff, you know what you must do. Walk into the water. Breathe deep. Let it fill your lungs, and I will take you in trade for all of them. Frank grabbed my arm. Jim, don't. There has to be another way. But I knew there wasn't. I'd known from the moment I saw those children playing Parcheesi that this was where it would end, in the water, in the depths, trading myself for the Frank, when I do this, you need to make sure their bodies are found. The Thompson children, all the others, you need to pull them out of the lake and give them proper burials. That's the only way to ensure they're truly free. Jim, promise me. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. I promise. I turned to the drowned mother. One condition. Before I drown, you show me proof. You show me that they're free, that all of them are released. Agreed, but once you see them freed, you must honor the bargain. No backing out, no changing your mind. I won't. The water column shifted, becoming a screen. A window into the depths. I saw them, all the trapped victims suspended in that dark space between life and death. The Thompson children, my son Michael, hundreds of others. And as I watched, they began to change. The terror left their faces. The struggle stopped. They stopped drowning and started simply floating, peaceful. Released one by one, they began to rise, moving upward toward the surface, toward freedom, toward rest. I saw Scarlett Thompson smile as she rose, saw her take her siblings' hands, saw them ascend together, finally free after 33 years of suffering. I saw Michael look back at me one last time. His eyes were clear now, no longer filled with that drowning panic. He mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Then he was gone, rising up with the others, passing through the surface of the lake, becoming light, becoming free, all of them, every victim the drowned mother had held. Rising, released, freed by my promise to take their place. Now, the drowned mother said, "Honor your bargain." I looked at Frank one last time. Tell them I chose this. Tell them it wasn't a tragedy. It was a choice. Jim, take care of them, the families. Make sure they understand their loved ones are at peace now. I walked to the edge of the spillway, where the water flowed through below. The drop was hundreds of feet, the water churning and violent. One step, that's all it would take. I thought about Catherine, about how she'd want me to make this choice, about how she'd always said I had too much hero in me for my own good. I thought about Michael, about his last moments in the water, about how I couldn't save him then, but could save these others now. I thought about Scarlett and her siblings, about all those children who'd suffered because of a dam built in the wrong place. Water held back when it should have been allowed to flow free, and I stepped off the edge. The fall took forever and no time at all. The water rushed up to meet me, cold and dark and eternal. I hit the surface and plunged under, the current immediately pulling me down, tumbling me, disorienting me. I could have fought it, could have tried to swim to the surface, but I'd made a promise. I opened my mouth and breathed in. The water filled my lungs, cold and heavy and suffocating. The drowning reflex kicked in, my body fighting desperately against what I was forcing it to do. Every instinct screamed at me to swim up, to cough out the water, to breathe air. But I held myself under, kept breathing in the water, felt it filling me, claiming me, making me part of the lake, and I felt the drowned mother's satisfaction. Its hunger being fed by my conscious choice to die. My vision started to go dark. My thoughts became scattered. I felt myself slipping away. But just before the darkness took me completely, I felt something else. Hands. Small hands, grabbing mine. Pulling me upward, I tried to resist, tried to stay down, but the hands were impossibly strong. They pulled me up through the water, through the current, through my own desire to fulfill the bargain. I broke the surface, gasping, coughing up water, my lungs burning. The hands pulled me to the shore, dragged me onto the rocks. I looked up through blurred vision and saw them, the Thompson children. All 7 of them, solid and real, pulling me to safety. "What are you doing?" I gasped. "I'm supposed to drown, that was the deal." Scarlett knelt beside me, her face serious. "The deal was that you had to drown. It didn't say you had to stay drowned. But the drowned mother accepted your sacrifice. You drowned. You fulfilled the bargain. We felt it the moment you breathed in the water. We were freed. All of us." She smiled, "And the first thing we did was save you." I looked around. Frank was running down from the dam, his face shocked. Other figures were emerging from the lake, walking onto the shore. Dozens of people, hundreds maybe, all the victims who'd been trapped. And among them, I saw Michael. My son ran to me, throwing his arms around my neck. He was real, solid, warm. Not a ghost, not a memory. "Somehow, impossibly, real Dad," he said, crying into my shoulder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I went into the water that day. No, son, I'm sorry. I should have been watching you." We held each other while the sun came up over Sutton Lake, while hundreds of freed spirits walked onto the shore, while the drowned mother's hold over this place finally broke. Frank reached us, dropping to his knees beside me. "How?" "You drowned. I saw you go under." "The bargain was that I had to drown," I said, still holding Michael. "Not that I had to stay dead." Scarlett found the loophole. Scarlett grinned. "Mr. Sheriff, I've had 33 years to think about the rules of this place. The drowned mother is powerful, but it's also bound by its own laws. You gave yourself willingly. You drowned consciously. That fulfilled the bargain. What happened after that was up to us." "But all these people," Frank said, looking at the crowd on the shore, "they're alive. They're solid. How?" "We're not alive," Scarlett said gently. "Not exactly. We're free. The drowned mother doesn't hold us anymore, but we're not fully alive either. We're something in between. The ritual released us from the lake, but it didn't return us to our lives. We can't go back to 1962 or whenever we died. We exist now, in this moment, but we can't stay." "What do you mean you can't stay?" I asked. "We're free from the lake, but we're still dead, Sheriff. We died years ago. Our time passed. Now we're just echoes, memories that got a chance to say goodbye." She looked at her siblings. "We're going to fade soon. All of us. We'll move on to wherever we're supposed to go." I looked at Michael. "How long do we have?" "Until the sun is fully up," he said. "Maybe an hour." 1 hour. 1 hour to say all the things I'd wanted to say for 3 years. Around the lake, I saw similar scenes playing out, parents reuniting with children, husbands with wives, friends with friends. All the people who'd been trapped by the drowned mother, all getting one final chance to say goodbye. I sat with Michael on the shore, holding him, talking to him, telling him all the things I'd wanted to say since the day he died. He told me about his last moments, how he'd slipped on a rock and gone under, how the water had taken him before he could call for help. He told me he wasn't afraid anymore, wasn't trapped anymore. Scarlett sat with her siblings, all 7 of them together. One last time I heard them laughing, planning what they'd tell their parents when they saw them again, wherever they were going. As the sun climbed higher, the freed spirits began to fade. They became translucent, then transparent, then simply gone, moving on to whatever comes after, finally released from their eternal drowning. Michael hugged me one last time. "I love you, Dad. Tell Mom I love her too. She's waiting for you, son. She's been waiting. I know. I can feel her now. She's calling me." He smiled, and in that smile I saw Catherine's smile, the expression she'd worn when she looked at our boy. Then he was gone, fading into the morning light, finally at peace. I sat there on the shore, watching the last of the spirits disappear, feeling the weight of 3 years of grief finally starting to lift. Frank sat down beside me. "You okay?" "No, but I will be." We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun fully rise over Sutton Lake. The water looked different now, cleaner, like something dark had been washed away. "What about the house?" Frank asked. "The Thompson house? Let's go see." We drove back to that gravel road off Route 4, the one that shouldn't exist, but when we got there, the road was gone. Just water and rocks, exactly as Frank had said. No gravel road, no tire swing, no farmhouse with lights in every window. The house had vanished, its purpose fulfilled. The Thompson children didn't need it anymore. "Should we tell people what happened?" Frank asked. "About the drowned mother, about all those trapped spirits?" I thought about it. Who would believe us? And what good would it do? The victims are free now. The danger is past. Let them rest. Let their families have closure. Over the next few weeks, we quietly recovered bodies from Sutton Lake, dozens of them, preserved impossibly well by whatever had kept them trapped. We identified them, notified families, gave them proper burials. The Thompson children were found together in a small pocket of the lake near where their house had stood. We buried them in the family plot in Braxton County Cemetery. Margaret and Robert Thompson had both died years ago, but they'd left instructions that if their children were ever found, they should be buried there. I like to think they're all together now. The whole family reunited at last. As for me, I went back to being sheriff, back to protecting the living, now that I'd done what I could for the dead. But sometimes, late at night, I go back to Sutton Lake. I stand on the shore and look out at the dark water, and I think about what lies beneath. The drowned mother is still there, I know, still waiting, still hungry. But it has no more victims, no more trapped souls feeding its eternal hunger. And if it ever tries to collect new ones, it'll have to get through me first. Because I drowned in that water. I fulfilled the bargain. I know the drowned mother's nature now, know its rules, know its limitations, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. The lake is just a lake now. The water is just water. The dead rest peacefully, finally released from their endless drowning, and I'm still here, still alive, still protecting my county. Because 7 children saved my life when they saved themselves. Because my son got to say goodbye. Because sometimes, even in the darkest waters, there's a way to find the light. I'm Sheriff James Caldwell of Braxton County, West Virginia. And this is the story of how I died and lived to tell about it.